I shall invite Ravi Trivedi on stage. Ravi is the founder of pushengage.com, a leading platform for browser push notifications. He is a growth marketer, a bootstrapped entrepreneur, and an angel investor who has invested in digital startups like Explorer, Tukitaki, Mocha, Venture City, Colatebox, and Coove. Ravi Trivedi will now conduct his session on growth hacking in 2016, how to acquire users for cheap.
Okay, very few. All right, so I'll try to see if I can connect. Can we have the slides? Okay. So before the slides are on, let me quickly ask this buzzword growth hacking. Again, how many of you are familiar with this buzzword growth hacking? Can you raise your hands? Okay, all right. So I think probably a new audience. So let me quickly rephrase and talk about what does growth hacking mean. So it's basically when you go digital, you start talking about, let's say, search, social media, email marketing, various tactics. Now that is a level one of it. Growth hacking is essentially where you say, oh, how do I excel in each of those tactics? And if my competitor out there is acquiring user for 1,000 rupees, can I acquire it for 10 rupees? It is meant for startups who have no money or are bootstrapped and can figure out a way to compete with the big funded companies. That's the whole idea. It's a very powerful concept. Given the lack of time, I'll only share 2 or 3 ideas, just get you started. Again, I understand some of you may not be looking at advertising or other tactics. So let's get started. So like I said, the first thing, what is growth hacking? One sec, just hold on a second. All right. Where's the presentation? I don't have the click. Yes, sir. All right, let's continue. So while we are waiting, let me take any questions you guys have. Is there anybody with any question? Nobody? All right, so it's going to be monologue. It's your session, it's your 10 minutes. If you want to ask me, let's go with it. I know the slide is not working, so let's keep going. All right, I'll give you an example. How many of you in this room have heard of Facebook like campaigns, right? So when you run a, okay, great. So when you run a Facebook like campaign, what do? You go out, again, I think maybe some people may know this, but you go out, you open a campaign manager in Facebook, and then what do? You say optimize for likes. Now, is that the right thing to do? Will that get you the cheapest cost per like? That's what Facebook believes. That's what you believe. That's what Facebook tells you to believe. But is that the right answer? That's the question I'm asking. So 3 years back, again, all my examples are basically based on what I have learned on my own and basically burned money learning it. So 3 years back, we ran a like campaign, and guess what? We found if you were optimized on Facebook for something else, like a CPC or OCPM, you were getting cheaper likes. So that's the whole idea. Within the regulations, within the rules, go break whatever is the norm, try different things, especially in large platforms like AdWords and Facebook, and you might be able to get something that is 10x cheaper. Can I have the click? Okay, just go next. All right. So that's an example. Now remember, all right, so that's my background. So I've done a lot of stuff, half in the investment space, half in the marketing. Let's keep going. Next, please. So like I said, to figure out some true growth hacks. So what are growth hacks? Growth hacks are things that perform 10, 20x better than somebody else out there. Remember, it is still not free. There is this myth out there, for free you can acquire users. I do not believe in that. Everybody needs to see it. But how do you find them? You got to try contrarian thinking. Remember, these are all short-lived. Why are they short-lived? They are short-lived because the moment you start doing it, other people come to know of it, and eventually the market goes away. Now, again, I won't bore you with inbound marketing. Again, there's probably, some of you might already heard of it, but some of those elements of growth hacking are present in things like inbound marketing. Essentially, the whole idea here is about targeting. If you know where your audience is and you can target them, the cost of acquisition goes low. That's the main idea here. The second one is if you can identify trends or ride on large waves. So in that scheme of things, I'll talk about 2 hacks. Can we go to the next one, please? So this is the hack number 1 I want to talk about. This still works, still very broad, but I'll give you some very specific examples. Number one, so a lot of folks know that Google is still a large source of traffic. In fact, Google search or organic search is a large source of traffic, and for a lot of startups and folks who may not be able to spend enough on AdWords still can drive a lot of traffic for you. So how do you get Google to get traffic? Obviously, you do the usual SEO stuff. Here, what I'm talking about is getting ahead of the curve with Google and finding out where you think the next search will come from. So how do you actually predict search trends? So what I'm talking about is, can you figure out what will people tomorrow in this city search for? And if you can predict that, and we'll talk about some examples, then you can write content to that, get Google to index you, search you, give you free traffic. You can also do is run ads on that if you can predict. Again, this is a very short-lived, maybe some may call it best practice, but when the thing spikes, you can make a lot of money. So I'll give you an example. One thing that happens again, which I think a lot of folks in this room are familiar, is print advertising. Now, what does print advertising usually lead to? If you have a full-page newspaper ad on a mobile phone by Flipkart, guess what people are going to do? People are going to go and search on the internet. So at 6 a.m. in my team, I have a person who looks at all the print ads, and from there we figure out what is going to be searched today. And then we make something. Again, it will be only for 6 hours or 12 hours, but there's big enough volume that you can ride the wave. It's an example of specific stuff. You can look at TV ads. Now, there are many more ideas here when we can keep going on and on, but there are companies who have been built only on that. If you look at companies like eHow, where the whole idea is, can you actually help people and solve their problems on the things they are searching for, right? So, and write articles around that. So that's the whole idea here. Can we move to the next one, please? So this is the second one, which I'm very passionate about, and this is where we started our company, Push Engage. So now the first thing we talked about was how do you get the user the first time, right? So getting user the first time, and I know earlier panelists talk about the hard part is how to engage them, how to get them back. So this will talk to that. So let's say you have a website, you get 1 million visits, you run an ad campaign, but guess what? All of them are gone. They don't come back to you. So what do? So you have 2-3 tactics out there, like email marketing. You get their subscription, you get them back, or you can do retargeting, which is an ad-based method. Now, this is a new method which came about because Firefox announced support in January this year and Chrome last year, which is called browser push notifications. So how many of you have seen Facebook sending push notifications in your browser? Anybody has seen that? Okay, few of you. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. The idea is just like Facebook is sending those push notifications on behalf of itself, trying to get you back, you can do it for your website. And it's a channel that is vastly outperforming at this time, partly because it's so new, and I believe for next 1 year it will outperform. Later on, of course, there will be a ton of marketers who will get in there just like email, and some of you will say, hey, it's all spam. But till then, you can benefit from it. You can use tool like ours, or there are many others. But the idea here is if you compare certain benchmark metrics, for example, in this case, what we compared is what does the email send to click rate look like. So what happens is when you send email to 100 people, you're getting maybe 3 people actually click and come back to your site, or maybe 4. That's about it. That's how poor, in some sense, email performs. But when you do something like a browser push notification, looking at 10x, much higher return, you're getting as high as 40 clicks. So those of you who haven't tried out, go Google it, find it out, and try this hack out in terms of getting users back. And this, I will tell you from some case studies. Several content sites I have seen drive as much as 20% of their traffic using this method now. It's just only 6 months old. And we have several e-commerce companies driving several transactions. So that's the second one. Can we go to the next slide, please? And again, I think I have only 5 minutes. So any questions? Anybody has anything very specific to talk about? Anybody? No? Yeah, please go ahead.
The example you gave for growth hacking, right? If I were to broadly draw a parallel on what we can do on Facebook right now, correct? It's a sponsored story, for example, correct? It's not a push notification, so there is a technical difference. But having said that, the purpose with which Facebook is pushing that message on behalf of a sponsor is the same, right? So to that extent, the strike rate of what you do, for example, in your services versus what Facebook allows me as an advertiser to do, how is it different?
Question, but let me begin by just delineating few things. So a sponsored story on Facebook is a paid form of advertising, right? So you are paying for it. Now what's happening is you can do equivalent in saying, okay, can I do a retargeting or something else? Now what we're talking about here is on one end is the organic stuff. So what is organic here? What do I mean by organic? It means the user is coming to your site and all he's saying is, hey, I'm fine with you sending me notifications. So he's your user who said yes, your cost is almost zero. So that's the big difference between a sponsor story and this. And that's the reason there are a lot of content sites who like it, because large content site, large digital site, lot of newspaper sites who are suffering from 2-3 things. One is the ad wall that we are seeing, the ad blockers, because of which their revenues have dipped. I don't know how many people here in that room suffer from that. Or because the Facebook traffic has declined because of its algorithm, are now using this beneficially, because it's your user who came to it, your site maybe once in a month, 5 times. Now you're able to get him to come 10 times or 20 times. And what are you pushing through this channel? You're sending breaking news. You're sending cricket alerts, scores. There are things that you actually, the user wants to hear based on his personalization. Yes, yeah, it is, it's re-engagement, if you call it. That's correct. Any other question? Again, I think I have many things to talk about, but, and there are some new hacks, but again, it depends on if there's anything specific you guys want to ask. Nobody? Okay, go for it.
So this push and engage, you said there's a product or a service? It's a SaaS product. Okay, based on the subscriber. So anyone can subscribe to that, and then that's going to do the push marketing through the browsers. Through the browsers. Okay.
You know.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Nobody? All right. All right. So let me cover maybe. Let me cover 1 or 2 more. So some of these are well-known, hacks for driving free traffic. This method, I think several speakers talked about content marketing and how, some of the top content can produce clicks. So in that scheme of things, the number one stuff we talk about here is, can you write or can you create content which either you post on SlideShare, visually, or YouTube, and be among the top 2% of that category of content? Because remember, the theme is ride the wave. So what is ride the wave here means? SlideShare has a lot of traffic. Can you be the top 2% to be found organically and drive visits to your site, right? So in this previous slide, prior to this, I talked about, using the search trends. Another idea there could be, okay, we all know Pokemon Go is a big game, how people are, using it. So a lot of brands are starting to think about how can they tie in, especially the offline brands, and you can come up with some creative things. So the whole idea here is ride the platforms, ride the wave, build something on top of it, get free traffic, right? So on that scheme of things, visually, YouTube, that's all in that category. Now, few more, I would say, especially on the SaaS side, this thing around answering questions in Quora. Again, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Quora, but it's a very highly curated, community where a lot of CEOs hang out. And if your target market happens to be there, just answering questions from a CEO, heart to heart, that actually gets you lots of customers. There is this thing called comment marketing. I will talk about, if there are SEOs, they're probably thinking this is one of those spammy things, but I think very relevant for maybe the crowd here. So let's say there is a news story that comes out. Let's say it comes out in Telegraph, and it talks about the e-commerce trends. They did a survey. They published a story. Now, how can you actually ride that way? So what you do is you go out, and at the bottom, if there is a comment section, you actually comment on it. Usually the top 3 comments are the ones people read. And if you're a brand, let's say you're an e-commerce site, and you have something to add meaningful, but how do you add something meaningful? You need to have proprietary data. How do you get proprietary data? You do custom surveys, do surveys of your data, your customers, and keep that data ready in your white papers or in some of those reports, and use that. And in that first comment, you talk about what they're talking in the survey report that you read, and integrate it what you have, and just come up with something original. If that is high quality comment, a lot of people, will read that and you'll get traffic. So now this is, so can you actually use it to drive traffic? Absolutely. So we have seen that. We use that method extensively. In fact, I would say 5 to 10% of my customers for the product that I run come through that method. In fact, I didn't tell you, so 6 months we launched Push Engage. Right now we're live in 105 countries. And it's all because of our digital marketing effort. So that's the, one more hack. Again, in the interest of time, maybe I'll just cover one. Can we go to the next one? I'll just want to cover one interesting one. So I'll cover to number 12, which is kind of unusual. We talk about this idea. Let's say there is an event in Chicago. It costs $20,000. You're a bootstrap startup. You cannot attend it. What can you do? to now get customers from that conference? Anybody has an idea? We're going to talk about that. No? All right. So again, for the PPC guys, again, so here is the very simple stuff. If you have a large conference, industry conference, what do people who are going to the conference look for? They will look for the schedule for that. So there was a conference for internet retailers in Chicago. So they will look for what is the schedule for IRC, what is the hotels around that. You have to predict what the search of that conference guys would be. That's number one. Then run PPC ads and drive them on a meaningful landing page, which means if they're searching for a hotel, you give them that information and then maybe do a soft sell. That's point number one. Number two you can do is Twitter ads, because there is going to be a hashtag that's going to be trending, and you can do promoted tweets. Again, I don't know how many of you have tried promoted tweets, still very new, but there's a lot of things that you can do in India. So those are the few ideas, but again, there are many more ideas that people have done. People have done a lot of offline stuff. They don't participate in the conference, but opposite to that conference, they have maybe done a free taxi ride from here to there. So a lot of ideas there which piggyback, and I think we have also seen some good success in that. So that's what I wanted to leave with. I think with that, I want to be aware of my time. Any more questions, and then we can close. Any question? Any? All right. Quora. 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 Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry, SaaS companies, sir? Powered by, okay.
Powered by SaaS companies.
So,
and seed key influencers. Just
okay,
2
all right.
minutes on this.
All right, all right. So one of the things that we do is for free users. Let's say you have a freemium model where you give a certain portion of your product free. For those users, every message that comes out will say powered by Push Engage, powered by XYZ. Now what that does is, you are creating your brand awareness among people who are visiting those free user sites. Let's say, for example, Flipkart, for example, again, bad example, but let's say it used my product and it was free for them. Now all of a sudden, all those who are seeing will see my brand there. So that will actually create some kind of virality, word of mouth, and that is very powerful actually in the SaaS world. And that actually, you can see a lot of people come up and sign up because of that. In fact, that's one of the key strategies a lot of SaaS companies do. It's like this powered by for the frees. And so similar stuff, key influencer, the idea is similar. The idea is that if you can find out who's the key influencer, for example, let's say you are in e-commerce and you are the Flipkart, you are the key influencer, guess what? Everybody who's your competitor is watching you. If they use a product, within 3 days, what we have seen is all of their competitors will come and trial that same product. So that's the whole idea, at least this from our numbers. So what we need to then do is find out who are those people and then give them maybe a free product, and that will get you more signups. So those are the two very simple ideas. All right?
Thanks very much, Ravi. Ravi Trivedi, wonderful session on growth hacking in 2016. But I request you to come up while we greet you. Sudeep Ganguly, are you here? Sudeep Ganguly, may I request you to come up and do the honors for us? Yes, Sudeep, are you here? No? I can't wait any further. Shomir Mukherjee, would you come up, please? And may we greet Ravi Trivedi. Thanks very much.